My name is Austin Barassa. I've been a nurse for 9 years, and I work at Billings Clinic at the Inpatient Cancer Care Department.
My name is Bobby Cox, and I have been a nurse for 17 years. I'm an LPN, and I currently work at the Rehab Hospital in Montana.
My name is Mitchell Dean. I work at Intermountain Health St. Vincent Regional Healthcare. I've been a nurse for almost 5 years, and I am a quality specialist.
My name is Dana Dugan. I have been a nurse for 28 years, and I work at St. Vincent Hospital in labor and delivery.
My name is Ellie Hanser. I have been a nurse for 3 years, and I am working at the Rehab Hospital of Montana, and I am an LPN there.
My name is Brittany Johnson. I work at Intermountain Healthcare. I've been there for 10 years, and I work in labor and delivery.
My name is Tracy Labor. I'm the manager of hospital surgery, pre-ops, post-ops, and recovery room, and I have been a nurse at Billings Clinic for 34 years.
My name is Bryn LaRush. I've been a nurse for 18 years, and I work at St. Vincent Surgery Plus.
I'm Katrina Luther. I've been a nurse for 35 years. I currently work at Miles Community College in Miles City, Montana as nursing faculty.
My name's Wendy Shoemaker. I've been a nurse for 25 years. I work at Riverstone Health in Joliet, and I'm an RN.
I think I've always known I wanted to be a nurse. I think it really stemmed from when my dad was sick my junior year of high school, and just having to leave him at night, but knowing that there were kind and compassionate nurses there to take care of him, I really just wanted to be that person for someone's family someday.
I read an article in People magazine about the neonatal intensive care unit, and I just thought it was very interesting. It intrigued me. I've always wanted a career where I would be useful, and I thought this would be a great fit.
When I was little, I was sick a lot growing up, and I just knew that I had always wanted to be a nurse. There's nothing that I ever wanted to be besides a nurse.
I knew that I wanted to become a nurse when I took care of my grandmother when she had metastatic breast cancer, and I also took care of my mom when she had breast cancer.
I actually started out wanting to be a doctor, but the nursing profession has a lot of flexibility, and so I chose to become a nurse because I wasn't quite sure what field or specialty I wanted to be in.
From the time I was a little girl, I was fascinated with nursing, and then I began reading a series of books in middle school about a traveling nurse that really sparked my interest. When I was 16, I was ill and in the hospital, and I was able to really see some of the interesting things that nurses were able to do.
So I had a career in pharmaceuticals, and as I was interacting with the healthcare professionals, I was really drawn to the role of the nurse and what they do for the patients. And so in my early 30s, I had an opportunity to go into the field of nursing.
I used to dress up as a nurse or a doctor. It continued through high school, and I have always had the intuition that I was going to be one. So I just feel that this is my calling throughout my life.
I knew I wanted to be a nurse in high school. I had grown up with a mom who was a nurse. She just retired after 40 years, and so she was a hospice nurse for the majority of that time, and I grew up around hospice patients.
I knew I wanted to be a nurse at a young age. My mom has progressive MS, and the nurses that cared for her in that time made me realize that that's the profession I wanted to pursue.
My husband and I were headed down Beartooth Pass, and it was a snowy, rainy day. We happened to see a shoe on the side of the road, so we pulled over, and it happened to be a biker who had wrecked his bike on the side of the road. And it turns out that he happened to be a retired firefighter, and his brother was a retired paramedic. And just being able to be on the scene with him at first until there was paramedics available was a blessing.
So when I was a nursing student in a small town in North Dakota, I had an opportunity to do a clinical shift in the ER, and we received a patient that day that had cold exposure. And as I was continuing on in my nursing career from a student to a nurse, that patient continued to be a patient of ours, and so that relationship was bonded during my early years.
After I graduated nursing school, my dad was diagnosed with a brain tumor behind his right eye, and he ended up needing a craniotomy to remove it. I was able to be there at his side through the surgery and the recovery for the months after, and I'm happy to say that he's doing great today and has made a full recovery.
I was a new nurse and I was on the code team at a hospital, and I went down to the emergency room because we had a code blue, and I get all my things and they put me on compressions. So I go ahead and start doing my compressions, and I heard a crack. And there's not one video that you watch when you do CPR that states that there's other things that can happen. So I look up at my charge nurse, and she looks at me, she says, "You're just fine," except I forget to listen to the doctor, and he tells me to stop because the gentleman has a heartbeat.
And before the Sky Bridge was built, I remember several of us nurses, when we would have to take our patients over to the clinic, we would have to bundle them up in blankets and push their IV poles and their oxygen tanks and so forth out through the middle of winter, through the dead of snow, through snowbanks, to get them across the street and up to the 4th floor to see the ophthalmologist.
I remember going through orientation, like my first nursing job, and just being so terrified, like, can I do this job? But then I always remember that you always have a team and there's always somebody there to help.
When I was a preceptor in Bozeman, I had a patient. It was the first delivery that I had witnessed as a student, and everything just went beautiful. I started crying and the mom was crying, my preceptor started crying, the doctor was crying, the dad looked at me and started crying. So it was just such a joyous feeling, and it was then that I knew I wanted to do labor and delivery.
So to be a nurse, you have to be well-rounded. You have to be an educator, a listener, a healer, and a friend.
Investigative skills are so important. As nurses, we develop reasoning, critical thinking skills that allow us to dissect what is going on with our patients and to determine what is best plan of care for them.
I think it takes humor to be a nurse.
It takes kindness, compassion, empathy, multitasking, and critical thinking.
You can have mental and physical skills that are top-notch, but I also feel that the most important thing are compassion and honesty.
To be an oncology nurse, it takes someone who can personally connect, be present, and be an advocate for their patient at a very difficult time.
It takes empathy, sympathy, and happiness.
You have to have critical thinking skills and be able to turn on a dime. You have to be able to adapt.
My favorite expression is actually tattooed on myself, and it says, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are small matters from what lies within us."
Just keep swimming.
When teaching young nurses and they become flustered in a situation, I tell them to take a deep breath, think about the situation, and then continue on with their best idea of what steps should come next.
A need seen is an assignment given. You have to want to be part of the solution.
Follow your dreams and never give up.
Love God and love others.
A favorite quote I have is, "Life is not measured by the number of breaths we take, but the moments that take our breath away."
Be the hands and the feet and the mouthpiece of Jesus.
Never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game.
We're all in this together.
So teaching students IV therapy led to a funny moment where we were talking about not placing an IV into an area that a patient was tattooed. One of the students asked what would they do if the patient had sleeves. I answered without thinking and said, we'll just roll the sleeves up, place the IV, and carry on. When everyone finished laughing, I realized the mistake that I had made, that they were talking about a tattoo sleeve.
I once had a gentleman who had a male mechanical device, and I had to insert a catheter into that, which was horrifying.
One day I had a gentleman walk in, hand me what I thought was a stool sample, and he said, "Open it." And I'm like, I don't have any gloves on, so of course I take it, and sure enough, I prepare myself to open it. He insists that I have to open it, and when I open it, he had made me a little small stool out of wood and a sampled size.
We played a practical joke on one of our night shift nurses and put a skeleton in the bed. We needed central line access, and one of the anesthesiologists was in on the joke. And so one of the nurses that I worked with at the time was 8 months pregnant and came running down the hall to grab him. And he went running down the hall to assist the anesthesiologist to get the central line, threw the covers back, and there was the skeleton laying in the bed.
I received a page as an OB flight nurse to go pick up a critical patient. So my adrenaline was going. I ran into the break room, into the change room. It was our locker room at the time. And I ripped off my scrubs and I put my flight suit on. And I was having a conversation with a coworker as I was doing this. And after I was all changed, I realized that her husband was sitting there with her too, eating lunch. And so we've laughed about that since. She is now my director, so we get a kick out of it.
And as the new nurse went to remove the old catheter on its way out, it flicked a little bit and actually had flicked some urine onto my forehead. But the new nurse actually didn't know that that had occurred. And when she looked up at me, I said to her, "That's not a bead of sweat on my forehead." And the funny part was she was doing everything she could to remain professional and not laugh in front of the patient, to the point where she was actually squatting next to the bed laughing during the whole situation. We ended up getting the catheter changed just fine, but it was very funny.
And I was turning one of my patients that had an epidural, and the second I went to go turn her, her water broke almost right in my face. I mean, centimeters away from splashing amniotic fluid all over my eyeballs.
When I was first learning my IV pumps and how to prime a pump, I was very confident after about 3 or 4 on my own. And I said, nope, I can do this. I got this. I went down into a room. I had it completely primed, and the machine would not stop beeping. It was about 15 minutes of beeping until finally my nurse manager came in and she was like, "Ellie, what's going on?" I'm like, I can't figure out what's going on. There's no bumps. The line looks great. And she gave it once a look over and she was like, "Ellie, the clamps are still on."
I worked on labor and delivery, and we had a lady that came in and the baby's heart rate was really low, so we rushed her back to a C-section. And somebody handed me a bottle of something, and I thought it was the scrub, so I sprinkled it on her tummy. And then they gave me the real scrub. That wasn't the scrub. And after the C-section, her husband asked for her holy water back, so I had to put holy water on her belly. So I was known as Sister Bryn.
When I was a CNA, still in nursing school, I went to deliver a meal tray to a patient, and I set the tray on the table, and immediately it fell off, went all over the patient, and I had a flashback to when I used to wait tables when I was in high school, and my first customer ever dumped the tray all over them, and so we all got a good laugh. I was a little embarrassed, but we got the patient cleaned up, a new meal ordered, and now it's a story I get to laugh about.
Invest 15% of your income right away into your 401k. And before you speak, ask yourself, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind?
Being there and being ears for them to listen to is one of the most important things that we can do as nurses.
Be teachable.
You're never alone.
Trust your gut.
Go into every situation with a positive attitude.
Leaders take in chaos, give back calm, and inspire hope.
Patients may not remember what you look like, but they will always remember how you have made them feel.
When doing mission work in the villages of Ethiopia, we come across people in destitute status. We interacted with the father of a 12-year-old child who was a paraplegic, and she had scars on her legs from dragging herself on the floor. She had no resources, no care. We did what we could for her. We treated her skin infections and her ear infections, and we gave them some pain medicine. However, at the end of the encounter, the father looked at us and asked us why we can't just take her home with us to give her the care she needs. That broke my heart, but I don't think he realized the gravity of what he was asking.
I went into the room when a patient had just passed, and the wife was sitting there holding his hand, and I sat down beside her to offer her support, and I just started crying. And I apologized to her and told her that I'm sorry, I'm here to support you, and here I am crying. And she looked at me with her crystal blue eyes and her white curly hair, and she just said to me, "You know, it's when you quit crying, you need to quit being a nurse."
Definitely the first time that I had to help a mom grieve the loss of her new baby. It was her first baby, and the time that's supposed to be the most exciting in her life just suddenly became the most devastating.
I remember a middle-aged woman who had MS, and she was the sweetest, one of the sweetest women I have ever met. She had the sweetest eyes, the kindest smile, and she was trying to decide if she wanted to go more into skilled nursing or stay at home. I was able to kind of let her know my experience with my mom, and I was able to be a listening ear for her throughout her hard time.
I had a gentleman at a nursing home that everybody absolutely loved. He did everything for everybody that he possibly could. He never had any family that would come see him, so we became his family. And when he ended up with cancer and eventually he passed away, like, I don't usually cry, and when it comes to death, we all were pretty heartbroken with that.
I was on the inpatient cancer floor taking care of a 27-year-old female who at the time was the same age as my wife, and she had cervical cancer. When I got on shift, she was doing well, and unfortunately by the end of the shift, she had actually passed away. And I just remember that journey with her and her family, her husband and her young son, and it was an emotional time that really was important to me.
I was working with another nurse in the ER, and we received a call that there had been a car accident. And when the victims began arriving, she said, well, I know my children are safe, they're at the prom. Unfortunately, as soon as the first patient arrived, she realized it was the date of one of her sons. The other patients started arriving, but her sons never did, as they did not live through the accident.
I put myself in their shoes and I use humor.
A lot of times they have horrible situations, whether it's a heart attack or a surgery, and they feel like there's nothing left for them, and I want to be able to give them a little bit of hope.
The good Lord gave me 2 ears, and so I want to listen intently to my patient to make sure that they're feeling that I am genuinely present.
I treat every person like they're someone's most precious family member.
Working at the rehab hospital, it is easy to provide compassionate care because your patients are going through the hardest time of their lives, so you're able to be there for them.
Be in the moment with the patient, listen to them, and help them achieve the birth that they want.
I really try to put myself in their shoes and spend time just connecting and getting to know the patients, really putting yourself in the situation and advocating for them.
Nursing is definitely the hardest but most rewarding career that there is, and I never thought that I would live a day where I go to a job every single day that I truly, truly love.
Nursing is an excellent career, and serving people and learning continuously, and I would encourage others to jump into that where they can really connect with other people and have a lifelong journey of education and learning how to care for and support people.
Sometimes it takes part of your heart and part of your soul, but it is the best job in the world.
Nursing has really provided me an opportunity, and I feel very fortunate and blessed to have taken care of thousands of patients over my career. But truly, this is a team effort. It takes all of us to take care of our patients.
After 39 years, I have so many blessings related to caring for patients, and knowing that each patient, did I not only care for them, but they also left a part of them that helped me to grow and develop into a better person.
And live and love and laugh, and remember that this world is a wonderful place to live, and we need to take care of each other.
I can't wait to see what the future of nursing brings me. I know that healthcare is always changing, but in the next 30 to 40 years, there's going to be so much more to offer. So I'm just excited for what the future will bring.
I just feel like I have a great team that I'm always with, and I've never felt alone.
When you build relationships and you can come back to somebody in 10 years and they can say, thank you, you saved my life, it makes it all worth it.
This is the best job in the world. You get to be, at any given point, a friend, an advocate, a mentor, a healer, a translator, and put all of those skills into one person, and that's a nurse.